Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I know a number of people are going to disagree with this video. I know this because I've been on panels, I've been guests of other shows, and whenever this person's name is brought up, there's a extremely intense, polarizing reaction. And I'm trying, just as I search for like the origin point to a lot of kind of trends and decisions, like when was this, when did this idea kind of float out there? I'm trying to figure out where all this began. And I'm not entirely sure. I've got some guesses, and we're going to go through them here. But I know a number of you are going to disagree with this. And if you are going to disagree, that's fine. But help me out. Help the other people out who are listening to this. Bring the receipts, or bring the proof, or the article, or whatever we're supposed to look at. Do not bring some commentator's video, whether it be mine or anyone else's, talking about what they think is going on, or referencing these vague, insiders that they have that give them these tips. I mean, we got to go with what information we actually have. So Sana Amanat is one of these personalities that, I say for whatever reason, and we're going to try and guess at what those reasons are, is seen as an extremely polarizing figure, and more on the negative side. There are people who like Sana Amanat who credit her as being valuable to Marvel, or helpful in her job, but it really kind of ends there. Nobody's walking around saying. There's this one Vox article that talked about how Sana Amanat was the secret weapon for Marvel. But in fairness, if you looked at their articles, they call Greg Pak was a secret weapon. Christos Gage was a secret weapon. Like, there's all kinds of, they're constantly finding these secret weapons. And it's really like whoever they're interviewing that you might not have heard of, which is nearly everyone who's not named Stan Lee. That's the secret weapon. I think Gail Simone was a secret weapon of DC at one point. That's how they write articles. But generally speaking, the people who like Sana Amanat, they don't credit her with being like this architect mastermind of the company. She's her official role there is that she is the director of content and character development at Marvel Comics. She joined Marvel Comics in 2009. Her previous career was with Virgin Comics, and then that didn't last long. The company went out of business, and again, a lot of people are like, well, it's Sana Amanat who did that. In fairness, most small indie companies do go out of business. That's not particularly unusual. Maybe it was because of Sana Amanat. Maybe it was because it was like the 80% of small companies that go out of business in this space. I have a hard time crediting that to Sana, particularly for her role, because I think she was like a junior editor. I mean, I should look up her LinkedIn, but she didn't have that significant of a role there. But regardless, she goes to work for Marvel, and there's this kind of classic story that's been told in podcasts and other places. Is you're trying, how'd she get to work for Marvel? She was kind of recruited in as being a different voice. Now, for what it's worth, and she doesn't mention it, but others have, back around this time period, around 2007, 2010, comics, in particular the big two publishers, and Image to some extent, were really trying to find new voices, which is a good idea, by the way. One of the problems in comics is that people tend to fail their way around the industry, meaning they get in a position, they've maybe held that position for like 20, 30 years, they haven't done terribly much with it, they get laid off or fired or whatever it happens to be, they leave. And they then float to the next company, and they stay there for a while with like the same ideas, the same things. Meanwhile, from the outside, retailers, people like me, others are commenting about like, hey, it'd be nice if you had a digital strategy. Hey, it'd be nice if we modernized how, trades and omnibuses and other things. Hey, it'd be nice if, we evolved with the times. We see movies and music and TV and all other forms of media evolving, and comics seems to be still sticking with a lot of business practices from like 40 years ago, but whatever. So I personally am all for new blood in comics, and there was this time period, again right around 2007, 2010 roughly, where the big two in particular started to say, yeah, maybe we need some people from outside. Now that seemed to be a half-baked kind of thing. It didn't go too many places. A lot of the people who got jobs in comics continue to be a lot of people who are the same old people, but That's a whole other topic, a whole other video for another time. But Sana Amanat was one of these people. So she was seen as having a distinct voice, and also seen as somebody who could, at least, as she describes it, and from podcasts and things, seen as somebody who might be able to reach a new audience who had a different take on characters and cultivating characters. And that was why she was brought in. Now, a lot of people have speculated she was also brought in because she, to be a more significant female presence in a, male-ish dominated society or industry. It is. I say it that way because a lot of people in around 2010 or so start talking about how it's a white male dominated industry, and that rubs me wrong every time, because there was very strong, very strong female characters. I mean, Jeanette Kahn, Diane Nelson. You had, I mean, all throughout. You had Louise Simonson. You had Nacinti. I mean, you can go through the long list of people who actually exist in this industry, and it always irritates me. It's like, oh, well, now we have to fix it. It's like, well, no, you actually had some good people. I mean, one of the things that Jim Shooter does not get credited for nearly enough is that Shooter made it a priority to get the Wheezies and the Larry Hamas and the other people who are not male and white, and for whatever reason, everybody just kind of ignores the fact that Shooter did a lot of that. And it was to his credit. He got some really great voices in there in the comics. And we talk about Shooter running a really tight ship and everything else. Another thing he did is gave women a chance to write some books. And, again, Simonson and Nacinti, and I mean, they're lots of people came in. Martha Thomas's, who we've interviewed, who got a shot to do some books during that period, and good on him. I mean, you know, uh, that's how it should be. Anyway, and it's not just him. He also cultivated a staff that looked out for new voices. But it always bugs me a little bit that Shooter is anyway. A video for another time again. So Amanat comes in, and she kind of, one of her first priorities is, or one of the things that she kind of works to figure out is kind of Captain Marvel, Carol, and then ultimately Miss Marvel. And one of the kind of the impetus, the pushes for Miss Marvel is that she wanted to create this new superhero that was Muslim, that was going to appeal to the Muslim audience. And that's where the character came about. Now, again, a lot of people on the internet have negative feelings toward Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. There's plenty of videos all talking to that. But as you saw from the numbers video, from the facts, Miss Marvel launched well. She was a success, and not just a success because Marvel was pushing it. A lot of one of the things, if you watch a lot of those videos, you see some of the tricks that the company does to kind of inflate the numbers and maybe make things look bigger than they are. They do things with overships and variant covers and all this other stuff. And it's really important to note that Miss Marvel, this first volume, Miss Marvel, really didn't do much of that. It for the most part was just a comic on the shelf trying to sell comics, and it, as a debut brand new character, and another aspect to Miss Marvel people like to overlook is it was heavily tied into the Inhumans, which was bombing. I mean, the Inhumans was not working at Marvel, yet Miss Marvel did. It did work. It was a successful title. Was it 150,000 selling title? No, but it, for a brand new character out of nowhere, it was you would be very disingenuous if you didn't call it a success, because it was. Now down the road, they muddied up the character, and they relaunched it, and they put in that terrible prison storyline and kind of some of these other aspects that just blew everything up. But it was off to the right start is kind of the key here. And Amanat definitely has some responsibility with that. She pushed the character, she championed it, and then Marvel, again, if you look at the timeline, Marvel then did start to push Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, as a big thing. But if you look at the sequence of events, Marvel did some initial press talking about the new Muslim superhero Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. Then it largely went quiet for about almost a year. And then, as it was clear that the series is actually doing well, it was a success. The sales were. I've talked to people at Marvel who goes like, oh no, we always knew that was going to be a success. Oh bullshit, you did. It was absolutely clear from the marketing, the press, the kind of what you were doing with Kamala Khan. You expected this title to last 8 issues and die like tons of other things you do. It definitely caught them by surprise how well the title did, because you then see the marketing and some of these other efforts pick up. And you see Sana Amanat in particular be an evangelist to some extent for this character. What that means is she was, news, late night talk shows and news are looking always for some kind of unique, interest story. And in this case, the creation of Kamala Khan fit a bunch of those. It was a Muslim superhero, and it was a young girl character, and it was somebody new, and it was going to appeal to getting kids and particularly female kids into comics. And so it was checking lots of boxes of what makes a good human interest story from where Marvel and a lot of these kinds of news agencies, how they think. Keep in mind, just articles like places like Vox and Slate and BuzzFeed and those kinds of locations, they're looking for something that's going to stand out and be different, something that they can write an angle around. And the idea of like, hey, brand new young girl, female superhero, Muslim, with Marvel in the name, yeah, that's checking lots of boxes for them to drum up interest and controversy. Just like they want people to come in and love the article and read all about it, they also want people to come in and hate the article and bitch about the fact that that's the trifecta of hate, of what they got the article. You have some people who love it and some people who hate it. That's what they're trying to go for. And there's a really great book. It's called "Trust Me, I'm Lying." It's about media manipulation and how these stories get written, and this fits right into that. So Sana Amanat finds herself really kind of front and center of pushing kind of these efforts, and her storyline is always kind of the same. Of this is a new character. We're trying to do new things. We wanted a Muslim representation, and that's kind of her speech of what she does. Now, around this time, kind of simultaneously, comic readers, comic fans, they don't, and people in general typically don't like feeling pandered to or like feeling like they're being told to like something. And so that's where you start to see this negative backlash come up about the character. Most of the people who were angry at Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, weren't reading the title at all. They were angry about Marvel kind of overdoing it with pushing this amazing, bold new character, most popular character ever. And then you see things like, even in the Wikipedia entry for Sana Amanat, it talks about how Miss Marvel was one of the company's most popular characters. It wasn't. And then it talks about how Miss Marvel was one of the strongest digital sellers. It also wasn't. Factually. I'm sorry, it was not. Now, does that mean it was garbage? No. Like I already said in a moment, a few minutes ago, it was a success. And you would be lying if you said it wasn't a success. But you would also be lying if you said it was the biggest success, right? Something can be successful. Something can be a strong seller without having to say it was the most popular, most amazing thing in the entire universe. It had the biggest digital sales of all the other Marvel comics. That stuff's not true. The biggest digital sales that Marvel was experiencing are shocking Civil War and things that were selling like crazy. That Secret Invasion did really well on digital. That's the stuff that sells well, because of course that's the stuff that sells well. But that doesn't mean Miss Marvel was a failure, nor does it mean it was huge. By the way, me saying this, that's not me playing kind of the sitting on the fence or the middle ground. That's called me giving you facts. It's like sometimes things are in the middle of sales. Sometimes they're not huge and they're not failures. That's just what they are. But regardless, Marvel was pushing this narrative, and a lot of the people who like to kind of engage and slug it out in the culture war were also pushing this narrative. And so that creates a natural counterbalance. And Sana Amanat finds herself in the middle of all this. And so where has all this led? Well, today, and I've been on shows and live streams and panels talking about this, and people will say things like, Sana Amanat is the most powerful person in all of Marvel. She is not. In fact, if you actually look at kind of the articles, the podcast, she's still an evangelist for the company, but she's said and done almost nothing in the last 3 years. There's very few articles. Every now and then she'll do a little interview or something, but it's kind of the same stuff that she says every time. And she's very quiet. Now, I've seen these reports and I've seen articles written that Sana Amanat is like some kind of mastermind puppet master behind the scenes who's like forcing the male characters to look like simps and all this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, there's no evidence of this. In fact, there's more evidence to the contrary. If you look and you listen to Tom Brevoort's interviews and what he's done, you talk to comic creators, which I have done. They will tell you that Sana Amanat doesn't send them private notes talking about make this character into a bitch. That's just not happening. By her nature, her goal is to go out there, and really what Marvel wants her to do is to give interviews talking about, we're a diverse company who's caring about diverse initiatives, because that's what playing the game is like these days. They want her to continue to build up and hype up Miss Marvel, because that was her kind of success that she can hang her hat on, and Marvel Comics would really love to have Miss Marvel be a Spider-Man level character. Because they're pushing an anti-male agenda? No, because they're pushing a money agenda. They would like that character to make them money. And they do view this idea of having a young female character that gives them a lot of, merchandise opportunities and ways to get into other countries. And that's just what that's the game they're playing. If Miss Marvel doesn't take, and really the big test of all this is going to be when the Miss Marvel Disney Plus show comes out. If that comes out and Disney is not able to, pimp toys and merchandise and shirts and sweaters and everything else with this Kamala Khan logo, then you're going to see a dramatic, backing away of that character. The fact that Captain Marvel, that we've kind of punted on Captain Marvel 2, the movie, and instead we're going to try and do something with Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan all in a movie together called The Marvels. The fact that they're doing this is an indication that, hey, Captain Marvel, the movie, even though it did well in the box office, even though it made $1 billion, it didn't translate to a lot of merchandise and a lot of toys and a lot of everything else. And the fact that it didn't is one big reason why they're not, slamming forward with Captain Marvel 2. That's the name of the game, is to get licensing money in addition to all this other stuff. That's plenty of Black Panther, helmets and claws and other things, and Captain America shields were sold. Plenty of them. But Captain Marvel's merchandise didn't move. Now, there's probably a little lesson in there that says, hey, maybe young girls are not, en masse, are not super excited about dressing up like Captain Marvel. Does that mean no girls want to be superheroes? No, of course not. Just maybe boys seem to be more interested in running around with plastic shields and armor, Iron Man gloves, than girls want to be, running around with a Captain Marvel helmet. I mean, weird. Go figure. That seems to be what what goes on. I have 2 daughters. They could not care less about Captain Marvel toys. My younger daughter really likes Barbies and dolls like that, and it wouldn't take. She and then when you go to Target or other places, you see plenty of them on the shelves, which means that is holding up for other girls as well. Is this a big conspiracy against girls? No, but regardless, Sana Amanat, she is, as I said, a new character. She's an evangelist. She's somebody that Marvel and Disney want to put out there as a good ambassador for the product. She speaks well, meaning she can, ad lib and talk up the product, and she's very good at speaking what they call on brand. She makes it about Disney. She makes it about the products that Disney's trying to sell, and she's successful with that. She's able to talk company shop very, very well, very effectively, and that is part of the job, especially when your job is brand ambassador. That is the job. You're trying to be a ambassador for the brand. You're trying to put your best foot forward for the company, and she's very effective at that, and that's what they're going to use her as. But in terms of this inside company mastermind, the problem is The conclusions people seem to draw is that, hey, Marvel is pushing more kind of Muslim characters, female characters, etc. And Sana Amanat goes out and talks up these efforts, and therefore that must mean she's the actual, secret president of the company. But again, there's next to no evidence that this is true. And again, when you talk to the actual people involved, you get a different story about her role and her responsibility. When you go and you look at what Sana Amanat's responsible for, what she's contributed, you look at the interviews, the articles, the other pieces. It's there's not a lot out there. That is not evidence that she's actually keeping it all super secret and she's the shadow ruler. I mean that works for comics. That's not really how companies operate. Um, I think that you can certainly say I don't like the things that Amanat's been in charge of. That's fine. I think that we're going to create new Muslim characters for young kids so they can see themselves in superheroes line. To me, I think that's as you've heard in my other videos. I don't think that's really a thing. I don't think that that's how consumers and kids think. So I think that's way overblown. But I think it's fine to dislike her. But I think I have not seen any evidence. I've talked to a ton of people. I do know a ton of people within Marvel. They all, when asked about this directly, find it puzzling and funny that people view this one employee as being kind of this super secret mastermind of all things Disney. Does that mean she tries to wield some influence? Yes. Does she try and push kind of her characters and her things? Yes. Does that mean she's the secret ruler of Marvel? No. No, again, there's no, I haven't seen the evidence. It would be the most massive conspiracy of all time if she was. And whenever I see videos or articles claiming that she is the secret ruler, all of them are like, well, we have secret insiders that tell us that Sana Amanat walks around the halls of Marvel and calls out people for being not woke enough. And that's not how the company works. That's not how it. I mean, there's so many things wrong with that statement, just of how the office is. I think that's very weird that people have got that in their heads. Anyway, I'm sure that some people will come in the comments to tell me I'm completely wrong and she is the secret leader and everything else. But my answer to you in advance is, but from where? If the only evidence is that she says that she's pushing kind of these new diversity characters and Marvel is also pushing new diversity characters, I think that's a far bigger sign that she's aligning herself to the company's shared objectives as opposed to running them. Because bluntly, you hear the same things out of Joe Quesada, out of C.B. Cebulski, out of even Tom Brevoort, out of several of the writers and editors. I mean, this is the company line. I don't think she's creating that company line. Her title, her position, and her influence and what she's doing and the articles and the interviews that she's in, none of that seems to indicate anything. So Sana Amanat, is she the giant boogeyman? I don't think so. I think you can kind of dislike her contributions without kind of elevating that to be, the Sauron of Marvel. But anyway, that's enough about that. That's just for what it's worth. That's the data I have. Go figure. Like I said, I know there's going to be some people who absolutely disagree with this, and I don't completely understand why people want to have Sana Amanat be this personality in the company. I don't quite get why people want that. I think that bluntly, I think there's between Quesada and Gabriel and others inside the company, I think that there's plenty of other examples of where there's bad decisions being made. Going to Sana seems like a weird left turn to me. But there you go. That's my perspective. Love it, hate it. It's all up to you. Thanks for listening.